ENGin, we are helping Ukraine speak to the world. And the future that I'm imagining in my work is a future in which every young Ukrainian can speak confidently to foreigners in fluent conversational English. So imagine what it would mean for Ukrainians and for Ukraine if this were the case, if we got to this future. For Ukrainians, individuals who gain English fluency can help them get a top degree at a foreign university, find a better job that requires using English at work. It can help them develop new skills. So even if they're not going to go back to university, not going to get a whole degree, they can take online courses. They can do short-term programs at foreign universities. They can develop the professional skills that they need to move forward in whatever career path they are in. If they're an entrepreneur, they can pitch their startup to foreign investors. If they're an artist, a musician, a creator, they can share their art with an international audience. If they're scientists or academics, they can collaborate with experts in their fields all across the world. They can go to international conferences. They can work on international research projects and amplify their work through these international collaborations. Any Ukrainian can tell their stories, give interviews to international media if they speak English. And there's things that didn't even fit in my page, but at any sphere, if you think about nonprofits, leaders of charities doing life-saving work now, especially during the war, can talk to international donors, can tell them their stories and their needs to get more donations. Diplomats can go abroad and speak to our partners abroad and build relationships and get the support that Ukraine needs now and after the war is over. So individually, English fluency opens doors for Ukrainians, no matter what field they're in and what their dreams are. But then taken together, widespread international fluency means so much for Ukraine as a country as well, right? So when we talk about English fluency at scale, that will bring international partnerships in business, in politics, in education, in the sciences. It means global expertise, best practices, and cutting-edge knowledge from all over the world coming into Ukraine. It means foreign investment, which is so needed now and will only become more needed after the war. It means tourism, which again revives Ukraine and connects it to the global community. And taken together, this is the key to a free and prosperous Ukraine. So ENGin is building this future today. But actually, all started, as Waldemar mentioned, 3 years ago. And it started with just one student and one Zoom call. So I want to tell you quickly the story of how it all began. I was volunteering at another nonprofit working with Ukrainian youth. I was mentoring a young woman named Elena, a superstar, excellent student, had top marks in every subject. She was a nationally recognized piano player. She was a scientist and researcher. She was very, very talented in almost anything she tried. And she was trying to get a degree abroad, which would be in English. And I was volunteering to help her with her application process. And everything was going great. We were corresponding by email. She was very talented, very smart. But then on our first Zoom call, she couldn't talk to me. She was really struggling, despite having studied English since first grade. So for 10 or 11 years at that time, she studied English, but she couldn't speak. She could write, she could read, but her speaking was really, really challenging for her. So I started looking into it, and this is when I learned that this is not just Elena's problem. This is a problem across Ukraine. Ukraine actually ranks 30th out of 35 countries in Europe in English proficiency. Despite the fact that over 90% of Ukrainian students are already studying English in school, and many have private tutors as well who can afford them, and so there's a lot of studying going on, but not necessarily learning. And another interesting statistic that I had seen is about intercultural communications. This is an international, the international PISA test, which compares a number of countries, and Ukraine, again, ranked towards the bottom, 58th out of 65 in international communication skills. So I started thinking, how can I solve this? How can I help? And I came up with a unique solution, different from your typical English classes. I decided I would pair Ukrainian youth with English-speaking volunteers for free online conversation practice and cross-cultural connection. So the key features of our program from the very beginning were this one-on-one connection. So it's not a class, it's not a speaking club, it is one-on-one practice, which gives maximum talking time to the student. It's 1 hour a week, which means it fits into any schedule, but it is consistent and regular. And again, speaking practice, so it's on video chat and it's focused on conversation. Because it's one-on-one, it's fully customized to student needs. So there isn't one ENGin program that everyone completes. Our volunteers are given a whole set of resources, and they choose what's best and what's most needed for that specific student based on what that student's goals are, where that student is starting with, because they might be a beginner, they might be intermediate, that might be advanced, and obviously the experience, those weekly sessions would look different for each of those students. There's this intercultural exchange component, right? So you're not just studying grammar in a vacuum, you are using it to speak to a real person from a different culture, and you learn about that culture and you share Ukrainian culture in a very authentic and real way. And finally, because it's one-on-one, you build strong personal relationships that help grow students' confidence to break the language barrier, to speak in the real world setting, and offer support, because so much of learning to speak is psychological, right? It's about knowing the basics, but it's also about being confident to use them. So what we came up with is different, and I would say better than any other option out there for learning to speak English. And again, specifically for speaking, right? You can't get around having to learn the grammar and having that basis, and that is something already exists. So we're trying to build onto that and saying, how can we take these students who have been practicing grammar and practicing vocabulary and get them to actually talk? And for that, ENGin is the only option that is affordable, but offers safety and quality for free. Again, focused on speaking rather than memorization, and offers this intercultural component as well. So when you compare to free resources that are available online, there are a lot of courses you can take. Some of them are very good, but again, they do not have the speaking piece. There are free chat apps that help you find people to talk to, but the quality and safety often isn't there. I tested a few of those for my student, for Elena, before coming up with ENGin, and I saw it's very hard to reliably find someone who is a fluent speaker who is ready to come every week and practice with you. And private tutors are an option, but not for everyone, because they are not affordable, especially on an ongoing basis. If you're talking about people in the United States or Britain, right, the prices are going to be out of reach for Ukrainians. And so ENGin offers all of that. And where we are, so I wanted to share another slide kind of on this topic to show how ENGin is really different from what's already out there. We're at this intersection of free human-centered learning that doesn't really exist yet, not just in language learning, but I really think throughout the education space, right? When you think about education, you have on the right here, I have some examples of how you might learn a language for money, right? You might get a tutor, you might get you might actually go abroad and participate in exchange programs, which again, for most people, it is financially not possible to go and live in the United States if you want to learn English, for example. Good tutors can be expensive as well. And so when you look on the other half of the slide here, when organizations have tried to bring knowledge for free, like Khan Academy, Duolingo, and many organizations that have done free, massive, open online courses. The way they make it free is by taking the human factor out of it, right? So you can have the human factor, you can have a human there learning with you and teaching you and pay money, or you can learn for free and there's no real humans, there's no teachers. And those have been the choices so far. ENGin is revolutionary because we're saying you can do both. You can have a human one-on-one learning and you don't have to pay for it. And that's one of my favorite things about what we do, because so much top education is just out of the reach, right? It's either expensive or there's very limited spots. And we tell young Ukrainians, come to us, no matter who you are, you can have this very quality learning experience for free with another real human on the other side to motivate you and help you learn. With the war, our program began offering even more benefits, and I think became even more important for our students. As many Ukrainians lost their jobs, we saw students coming to our program who specifically needed to improve their English to get a better job. All the opportunities that were available to them required English fluency because international companies are working with international clients. So we were able to help some of those students get a job when they had lost theirs due to the war. For our younger students, many of them saw their education interrupted due to the war, as they were moving or schools were closing. Because our program is so flexible, people do it on their schedule online. We were able to provide that learning opportunity for kids whose learning was otherwise being interrupted, and provide that consistency because our ENGin volunteers were there for them throughout, whenever they wanted to meet, even in those first months of the war. For refugees, many of saw that English became a matter of survival, and they moved to a country where they used English as a primary language to communicate with people around them, to build up their life temporarily while they were away from Ukraine. And we also saw emotional support become a really key part of the program during the war too. Just having someone to talk to, having someone across the world who cares, who wants to listen, who's ready to listen to anything you're feeling or going through, so that emotional support piece became, it was always a part of our structure. Like I said, one-on-one means you build a real relationship with your volunteer, with your student. But during the war, it became that much more important. And taken together, what we're doing is important during the war because we're creating a generation of English fluent and culturally competent young Ukrainians who will rebuild our nation. And this actually takes me to our big idea here with ENGin, right? I talked about why the learning that we're offering is unique and valuable. And what's really special about our program is that we offer that to, not to everyone, but let's say almost everyone. We work very hard towards what we call radical accessibility, which means making the program as accessible as possible to anyone who wants to participate. So ENGin does not look like a typical nonprofit project. There's no, this starts, application deadline is this date, and we start on this date, and we end 3 months later, and we'll take 500 people. It's not like that. It goes 365 days a year. Anyone can join anytime. Every participant indicates their schedule and when they're able to participate. So again, many typical programs will say we meet at 7 o'clock on Thursdays, and if that doesn't work for you, too bad. We work around people's schedules, and that means evenings, daytime, weekdays, weekends. We try to accommodate everyone. We really are not looking for the best students. We're trying to take anyone. We do require a very basic level of English to start with, so they can have that baseline communication with their volunteer. But we require an internet connection, obviously, because the sessions are online. But besides that, we're really open to anyone. And the reason that we try to make the barriers very, very low is so that we can reach 100,000 students. That's my goal now, maybe more later, and get big enough to affect change on a national scale. So how do we do that? How have we grown this program to its current size? And I should mention here, our current size, we have had 31,000 participants. We hit 31,000 this week, so that's 16,500 students and 14,500 volunteers. I want to talk a little bit about how we practically do that on that scale. So I think of our work in three main areas: recruitment. So we're bringing on students, bringing volunteers, onboarding, and then ongoing support. For recruitment, we do a lot of grassroots outreach. So the secret to getting thousands and thousands of volunteers is emailing thousands and thousands of people. So we look at all kinds of organizations, schools, universities, corporations, professional associations, community service clubs, libraries, all kinds of community organizations, and just try to tell the entire world of English speakers in the United States where I live, but also in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa, and really all over the world. I think at last count, we had volunteers in over 100 countries. I think it's about 130 countries. Most of them are here in the US, but we're trying to grow our presence abroad. And so really just a lot of hard work and outreach and getting those volunteers one at a time has helped us get to so many. And word of mouth has been really valuable as well. So people come to our program, they love it, and they tell their friends, and it kind of grows naturally. So the more we grow, the more the word of mouth grows as well, which has been really nice. With students, it's the same thing. So we have partner schools in all across Ukraine. We're on social media. We go in every group that targets parents, teachers, young people themselves, and we go to the press. We go to nonprofits that work with youth, and again, we're just trying to tell everyone in Ukraine that this exists, this opportunity is free, and encourage anyone who is interested in improving their spoken English to sign up. And word of mouth has also gotten really big in Ukraine. So people love the program. They try it as students and they tell their friends, they tell their sisters, they tell their classmates. Sometimes we have parents who start in the program and then they bring their kids, or kids start in the program and they bring their parents. So grassroots outreach and word of mouth are our main ways for recruiting thousands of participants on a very low budget. We don't really have much of an advertising budget as a nonprofit, but we've been able to work around that. So the second piece, people find out about the program, they want to be part of the program. We need to onboard them, and this is a very important piece of the process because this is how we guarantee quality and safety. So we have an application form that's online, and we have interviews, 15-minute video chat interviews for every student or volunteer who wants to participate. We have a program agreement everyone signs, and then we have an online training that everyone has to go through. And once they pass that process, and about half of people do, so we're always trying to balance, onboarding is a big challenge. We want to process hundreds of applications every week. Every single week, we will get hundreds of applications from students and volunteers. We want to be efficient. We want to move people quickly, but we do want to make sure that this program is the right fit for them. And so that's why we require the interview. We really want to make sure that they have, if they're a volunteer, they must be completely fluent in English. So we want to check that in a live conversation. If they're students, they must have a very baseline level of English. Again, we check that. We want to make sure that they're ready to commit, to meet every week, that they're serious about this commitment. They're going to show up and put in that effort. So we really want to make sure that it's a quick and efficient experience, but at the same time, it's an experience that makes sure that everyone that comes through is a good fit. Because again, that's how we ensure the quality of the program. So once we match a student or volunteer, and we're we make a few hundred matches each week. We have a staff member, our matcher, who literally all she does full time, she sits there and she tries to find the perfect matches based on schedules, ages, interests, etc. Then the student volunteer work one-on-one, but we are supporting them from the beginning to the end, however long they stay in our program. So that means if they have any questions, we offer 7 days a week customer service support. We offer a whole set of resources for volunteers so that we can make sure that they can customize the experience for whatever the student needs. We know our volunteers are not professional teachers, so we make it very easy for them. Whatever they need, we have resources for them, reading materials, videos they can watch, exercises they can do, questions to talk about. We've never had anyone run out of topics to talk about because we just have so much material and we're always adding new ones at different levels. And then we have our pedagogical expert, where if a volunteer says, oh, I'm struggling with something, they can email her and she will give them advice and resources targeted to their situation. And we have also started working on adding extra opportunities. So for example, if students want even more practice, they can come and join English language Telegram communities on themed topics, whatever matches their interest. We have Harry Potter community and movies community and a food and cooking community where they get to practice with each other and with our volunteers who lead each of those communities and have group events. And so there's this extra practice and fun component as well. We just recently piloted a program where our students could get free access to Coursera and Udemy courses. So they are learning new skills in English. So they're improving their English, and then they're learning about psychology, business, IT, whatever their interest and their focus is. So really try to provide an enriching experience and be there to support students and volunteers throughout their time at ENGin. A little bit about who our students are at ENGin. So they are aged 10 to 35. We don't work with very young kids because they're not quite ready for, the online format. And our volunteers, again, are not professionals, so they're not able to effectively do that. We're experimenting with 9-year-olds, so we might drop the age to 9 as well. And then we do have a limit of age 35 right now. That is just due to volunteer availability. We're hoping to remove that limit. We're always looking to get more volunteers, but that is unfortunately our limiting factor. There's always more students than volunteers, and so for now, we do have the age limit. Our students are all over 24 regions of Ukraine, and we have now students all over the world who are war refugees. For whatever reason, we're majority female. It's not on purpose. It's just worked out that way. So we are, almost 80% female. And I already mentioned, the only prerequisites we have for our students are very basic knowledge of grammar, vocabulary, and an internet connection. For our volunteers, so their age is 14 plus, and they're all over the United States. And this is old number. I said 80 plus countries, but it's over 130 now. Also mostly female, and totally coincidence, but very cool. It came out that way, that both of our volunteer and student bases are about balanced gender wise. And our volunteers are not professionals, but we do ensure they're fluent in English, they have a strong internet connection, and they're ready to do that 1 hour per week. I want to share a few numbers, some of these actually I see I've mentioned already. So we've been around for just 3 years. We've just celebrated our 3rd birthday. We've had 31,000 participants. There you see the breakdown between students and volunteers. We have over 200 recruitment partnerships with organizations in the US, worldwide, and in Ukraine that help share our program. That help share our program and help bring us students and volunteers. And here's some recent data. Actually, just got this a couple days ago. We put in a new impact measurement program, and we did it a few months ago, and now it's been 3 months, and so we can share our 3 months outcomes. So we were very excited to see that 100% of students, and this is several hundred students who have completed this survey, so it's a large sample size. All of them saw some improvement in English. 98% of them said they broke the language barrier. And as far as the extent of the improvement. So their communication skills improved on average by 11%, and their grammar, vocabulary, and writing on average improved by 13%. And all of this is in just 3 months. So so we were overjoyed to see, we got a lot of testimonials and sort of qualitative data about how valuable our program is, but it was really great to see a big sample of this quantitative data showing that it works. And I want to add, I think the reason it works so well in such a fast time is that one-on-one component, right? If you think about even a speaking club where you're practicing, it might even have 10 people, right? Compared to our program, where you would get 10 times as much speaking time as in that speaking club. And the way to learn to speak is speaking. So so I think that's why I'm very, very committed to the one-on-one format, even though it makes it hard. We have to find a lot of volunteers, but I think that's really key to our success. So behind the scenes, what does it take to run a program this big? We are really committed to effective processes. I come from a business background, so I think a lot about how to do things efficiently. Very often nonprofits are like projects of the heart, but for me, I really try to think of it as a business, because that way we can help more people, right? It's really important for me not to just be yet another project that helps 100 people and then closes down, because that's amazing for those 100 people, but what about everyone else? I really want to reach every single Ukrainian who wants this. And so this is why we rely heavily on technology to have everything in a very systematic way and keep hundreds of people moving through our process every week. So our lifetime cost per participant is just $20, which helps us, keep costs low. And our team, we have a team of about 30 people, most of whom are Ukrainians in Ukraine, and we have just 30 people serving up to 20,000 active participants at any time. So so you can see it's very effective, the sort of number of participants we have compared to the number of team members. And our baseline annual budget to do this is about $400,000, and it is all based on grants and donations, because at this time the program is completely free to everyone. So we are at this point not charging for the program at all. And what's really cool, comparing to this $400,000 budget, last year, so our volunteers contributed $4 million worth of time to their students, and this year it's going to be 5 million, if not more. So our volunteer-driven model means that most of our value, right? So 10 times as much as our actual budget, we're getting that much value for free from our amazing volunteers who are donating their time. And this is, a big part of the magic, and a big part of why it works is because we've been able to devise a model that draws on this immense value that volunteers provide. Okay, I've already talked about this, sorry. So here, just wanted to talk a little bit more about in our history how the program has changed and evolved. And the war was a really big piece of that. So when we started, I mentioned that we started from one student, one conversation. This young woman, Elena, that I was working with. So she was in high school going into college, and so that's sort of where it started. We were pairing high school and college students with other high school and college students. We had very basic recruitment pipelines, talking to high schools and colleges in Ukraine and the US. We had this onboarding process, which I told you guys about already, which is a crucial part of assuring safety and quality. So that basically looked the way it does now. We had a customer service team from the start. We had started putting together a curriculum. We don't call them lessons, we call them session plans, because it's less formal lessons and more speaking. And we had reached before the war, by the end of 2021, we had reached about 5,000 students. And then when the war happened, we shut down the program for a few weeks because we didn't know if it was needed, and could we do it? And as for everyone here, I'm sure that February 2022 was a confusing and difficult and transformational time. And in the end, we did end up bringing the program back and sort of transforming it a little bit. And the war is actually the reason that we were able to make this huge change and move from being a high school and college program to being a program for young adults as well. For the first time, because the world sort of found out about Ukraine and started caring about Ukraine, for the first time, we were able to get adult volunteers. Before, our volunteers were mostly high school students, and so it was not really comfortable or safe for them to work with adult Ukrainians. But now we could get adult volunteers. We started working with volunteers all the way up to, so here, age 89, we've had, volunteers in their 80s, as well as everywhere, across the age spectrum. And so we ended up really spending those first few months, April, May, June of last year, redesigning the program to make it for adults as well, really expanding our recruitment pipelines to bring in adults on both sides. We had to build a new online platform because we were getting so big that we couldn't do anything anymore on Google Forms and Google Spreadsheets. We had to provide a lot more support as the program got more serious and our adult volunteers kind of expected a higher level of professionalism for us. That's when we started adding the extra opportunities for students that I've mentioned. We really built out our curriculum and professionalized it to make sure there's resources for everyone. And by the end of 2022, we were at 12,400 students. And in the last few months, we've grown to the 16,000 number that I shared. So even in these 3 years, we have changed and evolved a lot. I couldn't have predicted that we would be here right now. We're very much trying to respond to the realities that we see and the needs that we see, and be very opportunistic. So when we see an opportunity, we jump on and keep growing, keep evolving. Whatever brings us closer to that vision that I shared at the very beginning, a Ukraine where everyone can speak to foreigners in fluent conversational English. And so we've transformed, and I think we're going to keep transforming to get us closer to that vision. I wanted to, as the last part of my presentation, share a few testimonials so you can see what ENGin is, what it means to the people who are actually part of the program. And after that, I'll be happy to take any questions. So first of all, right, as you've already heard from me, ENGin is language skills, right? That is maybe the foundation of what we started doing 3 years ago. So our student Vika said after a few months, she noticed a big improvement in her English, and she stopped translating every word in her head, which is such a key step of achieving fluency. And this is the kind of thing we see it in the majority of our students who are doing their meetings regularly, that we take that, it's like a key, we unlock that fluency, and they start speaking much more naturally. It's also confidence, right? So I mentioned before that there's a psychological piece to language learning, and our student here, our student Kate, said recognize this is really the main thing, right? The main thing ENGin helped me with is getting rid of the fear of making mistakes while speaking English, being misunderstood or looking funny. And already after a few sessions with my volunteer, I noticed the improvements. So we have a lot of students who have so much knowledge, but this fear is sort of paralyzing them. It's stopping them from speaking, and giving them the safe space to get over that fear and become confident speaking. And then they can come out of and speak in English, not only to their volunteer, but to anyone. It's a huge part of what we do as well. ENGin is friendship too, so it's not just about learning. We hear a lot from our students of comments like what Igor said here. The best part is finding new friends with whom you can speak about anything you want, which makes practice in English more interesting and more entertaining. So this real life component, you're not sitting in the classroom repeating grammar tenses. You're talking about video games or music with your friend, right? It's a very relevant, especially for our younger learners. The friendship is really a key part of it. For our older learners, professional opportunity is such a big piece. So we've heard from multiple students who have made progress in their careers, whether that's for a new job or getting a promotion, getting better work within their current career path, like Hannah here. And we're very excited that a year ago we were able to start working with adults and having this impact on the professional level. Emotionally, ENGin is a safe place, and I mentioned this became very important during the war. We've heard from several students like Lydia who said meetings really helped me with my mental health. They distracted and grounded me. Plus, I have an amazing volunteer. She is a mentor and advisor to me. I always feel that she is on my side. And to have someone on your side, to have someone in your corner can be really important to a young person for discovering their career path, going through the impacts of war. Personally, I'm also a volunteer with ENGin. I have my own student and she's amazing. She has great English already. And, I'm helping her improve in that. But I think so much of what I do is exactly this, just being a safe place for her to vent, for her to talk through her career struggles, for me to try to help her and listen to her and give her some advice. And so I think that support piece is a key part of what we do. For volunteers, ENGin is very, very special to them as well. They always tell me, I hear from so many volunteers, they say, I get more out of it than my student does, that it's more valuable to me as a volunteer. What they see is a way to make a difference, a way to change someone's life without having any special skills, without even having to leave home. This is just one of our many volunteers who's shared their stories. Her name is Beth, and she is an older retired lady, and she's working with a doctor named Sona, and she says that Sona is has become very close to her. Now she meets with her even twice a week rather than the required once a week, and volunteering with us helps her deal with her feelings about the war, not just being helpless and being angry, but actually doing something, right? Very often horrible things happen and we read about them on the news and there's nothing we can do. Well, ENGin provides for our volunteers a way to do something, right? Beyond just making a donation, a way to use their skills and use their hearts to help people in Ukraine. And finally, ENGin is love. We have multiple stories where people write in and say they become like new family members. And this is a really sweet one from our volunteer, Ron, who actually met his student and hosted her for the holidays in his home in America. And he said, she has truly become like a daughter to us and we love her so very much. We're so thankful for ENGin and you. Your vision and creating this program has been life-changing for so many. And yeah, these are my favorite quotes when people are able to form such strong relationships. And I think we had at least like 15 stories that people shared where they have met in person. We have people who meet like in Poland, if their student is a refugee there, or anywhere in Europe. We have a volunteer who's just about to travel to Ukraine to meet his students in a couple of weeks. Most of them want to wait till the war is over, but this brave volunteer is going now, and he's going to meet all 4 of his students. He has 4 different ones. Sometimes students are able to come to the United States. We had a student who was a musician in Lviv, and she was touring, her orchestra was touring in the United States, and her volunteer traveled to meet her while she was here. So people form really strong bonds, and those connections, I think, are so far beyond what I imagined when I started this program for English. And I'm very honored and humbled that it's grown into this movement that's touched so many lives. I think that is it. I'm just going to leave these links to our website. I have here, I don't have here a link for learning. If you know anyone who might want to become a student with ENGin, we have the information on the same website, enginprogram.org/learn, where you can read more and apply to become a student. We have the website in Ukrainian as well. You'll see if you go there, it's different languages, and you can get information to share. You can sign up as a student volunteer, or you can help support us. So that is, I think, everything I had.